Hello, everyone. Welcome to Deepsight. Today, we will continue to tell you the second part of the story behind the Renaissance. The term Renaissance actually comes from one of the earliest works in the history of human art, Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects, a book about the biographies of Italian artists first published by Giorgio Vasari in 1550. As an artist during the Renaissance, Vasari witnessed the work and life of many artists firsthand. Through this book, he left valuable historical materials for future generations. The book details the lives and important works of more than 260 outstanding Italian Renaissance artists, from the 13th century Florentine painter Cimabue to the 16th century artistic giant Michelangelo. Through these biographies, Vasari not only recorded the lives and achievements of the artists, but also conducted in-depth analysis and commentary on artistic styles and techniques. The book includes not only the outstanding figures of the Renaissance, but also their predecessors and contemporary artists, providing us with a comprehensive picture of the development of art. Today, starting from Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects, we will delve into the origin of the Renaissance, its representative figures and their major works, especially the stories of the three great masters of art, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, and the relationships between them. This book is not only an important document for the study of art history, but also a precious source of information on the art and culture of the Renaissance. Vasari is thus hailed as the first art historian in the West by later generations. Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects has had a profound impact on the study of Renaissance artists in later generations, and the view on the competitive relationship among the three great masters of literature and art in it has also been widely accepted and discussed. It can be said that the origin of the term Renaissance, the emergence of the name of the three great masters of literature and art, and their historical status in later generations are all inseparably related to this book. Let's talk about the origin of the Renaissance. The Renaissance originated in 14th century Italy, especially in Florence. At the end of the Middle Ages, Europe experienced the impact of the Black Death, changes in the economic structure, and the weakening of the authority of the Church. These factors jointly contributed to the Renaissance, a cultural revival movement. This period marked the transition of Europe from the Middle Ages to modern society. People rediscovered and embraced the classical cultures of ancient Greece and Rome, emphasizing humanism and paying attention to the value of the individual and the beauty of secular life. This ideological liberation promoted innovation and development in various fields such as art, literature, science, and philosophy. The Renaissance took place in Italy, and the deep-seated reasons behind it are profoundly influenced by Italy's history and geographical location. During the period of the Renaissance, from the late 14th century to the early 16th century, throughout the nearly 1,000-year history from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance, the Italian peninsula never formed a unified large country but was composed of multiple independent states and principalities, mainly including Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, Rome, etc. These states and principalities had a high degree of independence in politics, economy, and culture, each with its own rulers and governments. Since the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD, the Italian peninsula has continuously experienced invasions and rule by various foreign ethnic groups, including the Germans, Arabs, and Normans. The arrival of these foreign ethnic groups promoted racial integration, making the population structure of the Italian peninsula more diverse. At the same time, the languages and cultures of these foreign ethnic groups also had a certain impact on the local language and culture, gradually developing and perfecting the Italian language. By the Renaissance period, the main language of the Italian peninsula had become Italian, a dialectic form of Latin. However, due to geographical and historical reasons, there were significant differences in dialects in different regions. For example, the dialect of Florence was significantly different from that of Naples. In addition, due to the geographical location and historical background of the Italian peninsula, there were also some foreign languages, such as Latin, Greek, and Arabic. In general, the Italian peninsula during the Renaissance was a multi-cultural and multilingual region, and the integration of languages and ethnic groups in different regions formed a unique cultural landscape. Let's introduce the situations of different regions in detail. Florence. Florence was the main birthplace of the Renaissance. The residents were mainly descendants of Latins and Etruscans. However, due to the invasion and rule of the Germanic barbarians, the Lombards, in northern Italy during the early Middle Ages, some of the residents in Florence were also descendants of the Lombards. This diversity gave Florence a broader influence in culture and art. Venice. Venice was an important maritime trading republic, and its main residents were Latins. Due to its extensive maritime trade, Venice attracted a large number of immigrants from the Eastern Mediterranean, the Arab world, North Africa, and Eastern Europe, including Greeks, Arabs, Jews, and Slavs. Of course, Venice was also influenced by some Lombards and other Germanic descendants, making the ethnic composition of the city more diverse. The description of Jews in The Merchant of Venice we have read reflects this diverse population composition. Venice was also an important city in the Renaissance, and Titian came from Venice. Rome. During the Renaissance, Rome was the seat of the papacy. As a religious holy land and center, it attracted religious people, artists, and scholars from all over Europe. The Vatican's papacy provided a large number of opportunities for Renaissance painters, including Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian, etc. The residents of Rome were mainly Latins, but due to the international influence of the papacy, there were also a large number of Germans, French, Spaniards, and believers from other parts of Europe. Rome was also influenced by the Lombards and other Germanic tribes in the early Middle Ages, making the ethnic composition of Rome more complex. Naples. The residents of the Kingdom of Naples were mainly descendants of Latins and ancient Greek colonists. In addition, Naples had been ruled by the Arabs and the Normans, a branch of the Germanic barbarians, in history. Therefore, there were also a certain number of Arab, North African mixed, blood descendants and Norman descendants from northern Europe. The Normans had a significant impact on southern Italy. They conquered the region in the 11th century and established a powerful Norman rule. Milan. Milan was an important city and principality in northern Italy, and its residents were mainly descendants of Latins and Celts. Milan was the ruling center of the Sforza family during the Renaissance. Since northern Italy had been invaded and ruled by the Lombards in the early days, there were also some Lombard descendants in the population of Milan, which made the ethnic composition of Milan contain certain Germanic elements. Milan was also an important part of the Renaissance, and Leonardo da Vinci's painting The Last Supper was completed here. Pisa. Pisa was an important maritime republic during the Renaissance, and its main residents were Latins. Pisa was once a prosperous maritime trading city but was gradually controlled by Florence during the Renaissance. The maritime trade of Pisa attracted merchants from the Eastern Mediterranean and North Africa, making the population composition diverse. However, the main population of Pisa was still Latin. Siena. Siena was an important city in the Tuscany region, and its residents were mainly Latins. Siena was an independent city, stayed in the Middle Ages and the early Renaissance, known for its beautiful city architecture and artistic achievements. Since the Tuscany region was also influenced by the Lombards in the early days, there might be some Lombard descendants in the population of Siena. Comprehensive analysis. During the Renaissance, the principalities and city-states on the Italian peninsula had a diverse ethnic composition. The main residents were descendants of Latins, ancient Romans, Etruscans, and Celts. However, due to the invasion and rule of the Germans, such as the Lombards and Normans, in history, the population in these regions also included some Germanic descendants. In addition, these regions also attracted a large number of immigrants from other European countries and regions, such as Greeks, Arabs, Jews, and Slavs. In terms of language, the main languages during the Renaissance were various dialects based on Latin. Although there was no unified Italian, the dialects of different city-states and principalities gradually became more consistent in communication. In addition, Latin was widely used in academic and religious occasions, and Greek also had an important position in the academic community. The diversity of the Italian peninsula provided a fertile ground for cultural exchange. Although most of us are impressed by the paintings and the well-known three great masters of art in the Renaissance, in fact, the earliest revival of the Renaissance was more concentrated in literature. It was the changes in literature and thought that drove the subsequent development of art. In the early days of the Renaissance, scholars extensively explored and studied classical Latin and Greek literature. They attached importance to the works of ancient writers and tried to restore the wisdom and culture of ancient times by reviving classical literature and philosophy. This process was called the humanist movement. The representative figure of humanism was Francesco Petrarch. He was one of the pioneers of the Renaissance and was known as the father of humanism. His poetry and research on classical literature had a profound impact on the Renaissance. His contemporary, Giovanni Boccaccio, was a friend and colleague of Petrarch. He was famous for his work, The Decameron, and promoted the development of Italian literature. From the late 14th century to the early 15th century, during this period, scholars began to systematically collect and study the literary works of ancient Greece and Rome, rediscovering many forgotten classical documents. From the 15th century to the 16th century, with the invention of the printing press, the dissemination of classical documents became more widespread, and humanist ideas spread rapidly throughout Europe. Let's introduce Petrarch in detail. He was born in Arezzo, Italy, on July 20th, 1304. His father was a lawyer, and due to political reasons, the family was forced to leave Florence and move to Avignon. Petrarch initially studied law at the University of Montpellier in France and the University of Bologna, but his interests were mainly in writing and classical literature. In 1326, he completed his first important work, Africa, a Latin epic about Scipio Africanus. Throughout his life, he traveled constantly, searching for and collecting ancient documents in the hope of reviving classical culture. During the Renaissance, when scholars rediscovered and studied classical documents, they realized that certain periods of the Middle Ages were relatively backward in culture and science. The fall of the Roman Empire was a process in which barbarism destroyed civilization. Moreover, society entered a dark age of nearly 1,000 years in barbarism and ignorance. Compared with the prosperity of ancient Greece and Rome, in terms of cultural, scientific, and artistic achievements, the Germans brought the destruction and regression of civilization. Renaissance scholars, like Petrarch and others, began to search for all traces of ancient Roman and Greek civilizations on the land beneath their feet. By excavating and studying the ancient Greek and Roman documents that even the Arabs had preserved and continued, they tried to revive the broad wisdom, free thinking, and virtuous behavior of the classical era. They believed that the ideas and knowledge in classical documents could bring progress and inspiration to contemporary society. Therefore, the Renaissance was not just a rediscovery of classical documents, but also a revival and innovation of culture, art, and science. In 1341, Petrarch was crowned poet laureate in Rome and became a famous European scholar and poet. His work, Canzoniere, is a collection of poems themed around his love for a woman named Laura. These poems had a profound impact on the poetry creation of the Renaissance. Petrarch also coined the term Dark Ages to describe the cultural stagnation of the Middle Ages. His ideas and works had an important influence on later humanists and Renaissance scholars. Petrarch lived to be exactly 70 years old and was a well-deserved master of that era. He died in Arqua, Italy, on July 19, 1374, but his legacy and ideas have always influenced later generations. Do you feel strange when you see this? The well-known literary master Dante was earlier than Petrarch. Why is Petrarch called the father of the Renaissance? This is a deeper, level professional academic question. Although Dante was earlier than Petrarch, Petrarch played a key role in reviving classical culture and promoting humanism. While Dante was more of a great poet and literary giant. Dante Alighieri, 1265 to 1321, was a famous poet and writer during the Italian Renaissance. His most famous work is Divine Comedy, an epic describing the journey of the soul, which is considered one of the greatest works in the history of Western literature. Dante was born in Florence and received a good education in his early years, coming into contact with a large number of classical literary works. His literary career began with La Vita Nuova, a work about his love for Giulietta. Later, he was exiled for participating in political struggles, and this experience deeply influenced his creation. During the exile period from 1308 to 1321, Dante created the historical masterpiece Divine Comedy. Through this work, Dante explored human sin, redemption, and the beauty of heaven, reflecting his thoughts on contemporary society, religion, and politics. It depicts the struggles and hopes of the human soul in the pursuit of redemption and truth with rich symbols and metaphors. Divine Comedy consists of 3 parts: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. Each part consists of 33 poems, plus 1 poem at the beginning, making a total of 100 poems. Inferno depicts Dante's experience of traversing the 9 circles of hell under the guidance of Virgil, an ancient Roman poet. Here, he saw all kinds of sinners being punished according to their crimes committed during their lifetimes. Each circle of hell corresponds to a specific crime and punishment method, demonstrating Dante's profound understanding of sin and punishment. Purgatorio describes Dante's continued climb of the mountain of purgatory under the guidance of Virgil. The souls here are atoning for their crimes and gradually approaching heaven. The 7 levels of purgatory correspond to the 7 deadly sins: pride, envy, anger, sloth, greed, gluttony, and lust. Through conversations with these souls, Dante reveals the path of human soul redemption. Paradiso is Dante's experience of traversing the 9 heavens and finally seeing God under the guidance of Beatrice. The various levels of heaven represent different virtues and degrees of soul purification. Here, Dante explores the mysteries of the universe and divine truth. The main themes of Divine Comedy include redemption and sin. Through the depictions of hell, purgatory, and heaven, Dante explores human crimes and their consequences, as well as the path of soul redemption. The relationship between the divine and the human. The work combines theology, philosophy, and literature to explore the relationship between the divine and the human. Political and social criticism. Dante criticizes the politics and society of his time in the work, reflecting his pursuit of justice and power. In 1321, he died in Ravenna shortly after completing Divine Comedy. But his works and ideas still have a profound impact on world literature and philosophy. It is not only a treasure of Italian literature, but also a classic in the history of world literature. Many artists, writers, and philosophers have drawn inspiration from it and created a large number of works. Dante's works are not only of great significance in literature, but also have a profound impact on the development of the Italian language. His works made Italian a language for literary creation, not just a subordinate language to Latin. Dante's works mark the literary achievements at the end of the Middle Ages. However, Dante's literary style and thought were still influenced by the Middle Ages to a certain extent. Petrarch, who was nearly 30 years younger than him, lived in an era closer to the Renaissance. He was not only a representative figure in the early days of the Renaissance, but also made important contributions to the revival of classical culture. He shaped the humanist ideology that emphasizes independent thinking of the individual and the potential of humanity, which forms a sharp contrast to the religious and theological-centered ideas of the Middle Ages. Petrarch's ideas and academic contributions influenced scholars and artists throughout the Renaissance, especially his students and followers. Although the literary Renaissance was the beginning of the Renaissance, the revival of art also followed. With the rediscovery of classical culture, artists were inspired by ancient Greek and Roman art and created many great artworks. For example, famous artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael created many immortal works during this period. The Renaissance started from the literary Renaissance and gradually spread to various fields such as art, science, and philosophy, forming the most comprehensive cultural renaissance in human history. Dear viewers, this is the content of this issue. We will continue to tell you the history of the Renaissance in the next issue. We hope you liked today's video. If you have any questions or ideas, please leave a message in the comments section. Don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell to get the latest video notifications. I'm your Space Journey Navigator, Lawrence Stardust. Learning from others can help us understand our own gains and losses, and learning from history can help us understand the rise and fall of nations. Let's experience the beauty of the world together and strive for human peace and democracy. See you next time.